Sooner Nation, welcome back to the Sooner Surge. And today we're coming at you with the end of season recap of Oklahoma football this year. Before we get started, please hit the subscribe button, be a part of Sooner Surge. It's growing rapidly, and it's because of you hitting that button. So keep hitting it, enjoying what's going on. So, guys, the season's over except for the bowl game. We'll see where they end up, but 10-2. Kind of, if before the season, I think a lot of people picked 10-2. With their schedule, though, I was kind of hoping for 11-1, maybe with the Texas loss only. You win that game and you end up with two whack losses that you shouldn't have lost. But overall, grade out the season for the team at 10-2.
I'll start off. I'll give it an A, I'd say, because going into the season, I think if you said Oklahoma was going to be 10-2, you didn't tell them that the two teams they were going to lose to, you didn't tell them that they were going to beat Texas. You would say going from 6-7 to 10-2 is great for Oklahoma going into the SEC, right? But now that they beat Texas, a lot of people are saying 10-2, this team should have gone undefeated. Now, I think going undefeated was really just not realistic for this team because although their talent did improve a lot, it wasn't quite there to what they needed. Now, going into year 3, I think they're going to do some special things. But, I think Brent Venables, he's really starting to get his foundation laid. You saw that this year, much better play on the defensive side of the ball. Although in the second half of the season, it was much more sloppy than the first half. Offensively, they improved. So I would give this an A overall.
I think it's at best this is a C- year.
What?
What do you mean what? Because last year was an F.
Yeah.
I
So
get where Jeremy's
in
going.
my opinion, I'm right in saying C- because that's massive improvements from last year. It is. Last year was an abysmal performance. This year they did a lot better, but you raised the defensive questions at the end of the year wasn't good. And while I wish we could just say, yeah, they didn't lose those 2 games, those are hypotheticals. They did lose them. The fact of the matter is they lost them. They were bad in them, too many penalties, wasn't disciplined. The discipline was lack of discipline was unbelievable in the 2-game stretch they lost. Really 3-game stretch. Go back to UCF. 3 games in the row in the middle of the year. Now, obviously, they had some issues. Stutzman going down obviously hurt them a lot. But I would grade it out as a C-, and I would put an asterisk by it and say it's still massive improvement to where they were. They're definitely in the right direction, headed in the right direction. But I think even BV would say that even though they're much better on the record side of things, they're not near where they need to be, especially heading to the SEC. So I say C-, guys. You can laugh all you want. That's my score.
Yeah, I'm going to go with something very similar, just a C, slightly above C-. It's the most disappointing a 10-2 season could be, if you ask me. They were 6-0 with a win against Texas, just an unreal final drive from Dylan Gabriel, on top of the world at that point. And then to show up with what they did against UCF, they're lucky to win that game. They won it by 3. Then to lose to Kansas by 5, then to lose to Oklahoma State in the final bedlam by 3. It's just, that was embarrassing, that 3-game stretch following the Texas game. And that was off of a bye week. You had a Texas win, then a bye week, and then they just seemed like they didn't know what they were doing. Defense started playing sloppier than they were through those first 6 games, but they still made the plays you needed to win. There was the play calling issues, the offensive play in general. Still couldn't figure out who your running back was until after the Kansas game and the Oklahoma State game. It was, okay, Gavin Sawchuk is the guy going forward. There was just so many issues. The competitive depth was talked about all preseason leading up to it. That was quickly gone when you had Justin Harrington tear his ACL early in the season. To lose your starting cheetah and Harrington, one of those senior leaders, it's tough. So you had Andrew Anthony go down after the Texas game. The offense didn't look the same for a few weeks with his absence. Drake Stoops emerged as a star for the offense, but it was just the injuries were starting to get to the Sooners. Danny Stutzman, he went down against Kansas. You miss second half of Kansas, whole game Oklahoma State. That's 2 losses right there. So yeah, 10-2, massive improvement from last year, but it's a disappointing 10-2 when you looked at the midway point of you just beat Texas. This team could go to the playoffs, and they're not even playing for a Big 12 championship now.
But
Well-
that exactly proves to my point, in which I said that that going into the beginning of the year, if you were to say this team was 10-2 and you didn't know what 2 teams they were going to lose to, you would automatically assume that they were more than likely going to lose to Texas. That's why I graded it an A, and I see your guys' point at a C.
Hey, Jackson, if you give them an A, I don't know what an A+ would be, but they're in the Big 12, but next year in the SEC, I mean, they could play like this year and be 6-7, and that's the problem. And when I look at the grades,
That's on a good day, Jack.
I
6 and 7's on a good.
I tend to lean more towards Jeremy and Hunter on this, but and my problem is this: after Texas, guys, UCF very well could have been the loss. Kansas,
It was a
Oklahoma State.
Jay.
Wait. Can I? You love to interrupt, don't you? Okay.
I was going to correct the score earlier. UCF was a 2-point conversion away from sending it to overtime. It wasn't a 3-point game.
Okay, but yeah, my bad. Yeah, 32-30.
So UCF could have been a loss.
31-29.
Texas and OSU were losses. BYU, take away Billy Bowman's pick 6, probably a loss. So I don't know how anybody could say this team, especially the second half of the season, played up to their capability. It's very disappointing. Very disappointing end of the season.
No.
You should have been after the Texas game playing your best ball. You heard Brent Venables say, we don't want to peak too early. Well, they didn't. I mean, they did peak too early.
Jay and Hunter and Jackson, all three. My perspective is it seems like OU has digressed second half of the season, both years under BV. Now, obviously competition, but you could say that, but that's not really the reason this year. And there's some questions I raise into Hunter brings up Sawchuk, takes over half the year to get a running back figured out. And then I'm going to bring up a guy that why 6 games in, actually 7 games in, we really stopped seeing him, and it's Deshaun McCullough. There are guys who just disappear.
I don't get it.
There's some questions.
The personnel decisions make no sense.
Yeah,
at all.
and we'll never know. We'll never know the answer to that.
Yeah, how come it took 8 to 9 weeks to start getting Jaden Gibson the ball?
There are things they got to improve upon. We know that. And, I mean, I think most people I know there's a lot of sunshine pumpers out there, but you look at OU's schedule this year going in the season, it was hard to find 2 losses, in my opinion. I know I'm an
outside
OU
of
fan,
Texas.
Huh?
Outside of Texas, yes.
Oh, 100% outside of Texas. Yeah, I mean, that's why I say that was an average year in that aspect. But if you look at players, to me, you got an offensive and a defensive player of the year. I would go with, obviously, offense. I think you have to go with Dylan Gabriel. And I think defense, I would go with Billy Bowman. The guy's been the steady rock on the defense. I know Stutzman was early on, but after his injury, he hasn't been playing as good. So I would say Billy Bowman. Billy Bowman's got 3 interceptions for touchdowns, almost had another one. I mean, he's been huge plays in games. So
I think all of us would agree with those 2 guys. It's Dylan Gabriel and Billy Bowman. I mean, the only change would be if someone wanted to put Stutzman there. I wouldn't argue too much with him. But, hey, what would you guys say then? What was the best improvement made by OU from last year to this year?
I would say for offensively, I think it was third down. I think we saw a major step up there. And defensively, I would say, I mean, is it bad if I say the tackling? Because at times it sucked late in the year. So, I mean, I don't really know if there's something just defensively that seemed to improve so much. But if I had to say one thing, I would say the run defense. I mean,
I would say
the BYU game, they didn't really have an abysmal game against the run.
Yeah, I would say the red zone defense. When it mattered most,
yeah,
they're getting the stops. They had a few
on the
goals,
1 yard line.
goal line stands. They had a few turnovers forced in the red zone. They would give up the big plays, but it was a lot of times of they give up the 50-yard bust. Okay, now it's down there. We got 4 more plays to turn this around. That play doesn't matter if they don't put points on the board. So I think they did really well at times. There was a few that almost happened, and then other things happened. You had some penalties, stuff like that, just boneheaded mistakes that can't happen in those situations. But for the most part, there was a drastic improvement in that. I mean, that's really what helped them win against Texas was that goal line stand, 4 plays at the goal line. If that doesn't happen, OU doesn't win that game.
And I would say most improvement, and it was really just the first half of the season, was the defense being in the right position. And then second half of the season, the linebacker, I don't know what happened, but they kind of lost their spots. But I would think that's the most improvement. And then the most annoying and disappointing part of the season to me in position group, special teams. Special teams went so south without a kicker and a punt returner. And listen, it's frustrating to me. I know Billy Bowman got injured running kicks back, okay? But I think we've also heard Brent Venables say he doesn't believe in not playing your best players at positions.
I don't get that. Like,
and
I
listen,
don't get how you say that and then you don't do it.
How can Peyton Bowen not be running punts back?
He was injured the second half of the season.
I understand, but I'm saying let's use. I know Brent Venables talks about that being an advantage in games, a competitive edge to get extra yardage on kickoffs or punt returns.
And how do you not have guys like Brennan Thompson on kick return, the fastest dude on your team?
So I think overall special teams was not good this year. It just was not.
It was bad.
It was bad.
Like
turnovers.
It was a capital F bad.
And big moments, guys. Farouk fumble running the kickback against Kansas. You had the block punt against Texas. I mean,
and even like when they would make the plays, you had Farouk run one back 50 yards against Tulsa, and he fumbled it. I mean, which again, it's Tulsa. They wanted a blowout. They got the ball right back with a Gentry Williams interception. But I mean, you can't do that. You cannot make that big play and then give it all away just because of simple mistakes such as holding on to the football.
You know who Texas had running punts back this year?
Xavier Worthy.
Xavier Worthy.
I don't get the whole punt thing because, like Jay mentioned, Brent Venables said how important, I think he called it the extra 7 yards, are. You watch Billy Bowman, there's a reason he just set a school record for return yards on interceptions. 3 pick sixes this year. That's also a school record. When you watch him get the ball in open space, he's going to make a play. I don't get how you can justify if you're going to preach on that 7 yards and all those extra yardage points you can get when you have your best players out there to not put Bill Bowman back.
They're probably going to say that Gavin Freeman's the best. And listen, I'm not saying Gavin Freeman isn't good at it. He ran one back early in the year, but let's all be honest. I think anybody watching the games need to be honest about it. He kind of had near the end of the year, kind of had the yips. I mean, he was struggling.
No kind of about it, Jay.
So
it was bad.
Well,
like bad.
He fumbled one that resulted in a turnover versus West Virginia. He muffed another one. He had the one versus TCU. That's 3.
Yeah. So
it
that's got to be
He
better.
struggled to catch the ball. Hey, my disappointment and improvements, if you're going to go by position group outside of Gabriel, because Gabriel is much improved, the wide receiver room by far and away was the best position group. They were able to get separation all year long. They didn't have many drops, just a couple, one big one against OSU. But for the most part, their yards after catch was better. They showed great skill in downfield blocking. The wide receiver room was really good, outside maybe of some questionable personnel decisions. On the defensive side, and I agree, Jackson, on the third down conversion. Even on the defensive side, the third down stops was better than last year, but especially the short yardage stops, I think that was much improved. The disappointing thing for me in this year is a continual lack of discipline. It's not improving much, and I have a problem with that it's not improving that much. There's a constant lack of discipline with penalties. With they went through a stretch. It was just bad. Championship teams don't have stretches like that. They don't lose their mind like that. That is something BV is trying to change, and he's done a great job at it, but he himself would also say that. The other thing that was improved this year, it's still not where it needs to be, BV and time management. It was much improved. It's still not great.
Yeah, I thought he did a lot better job this year in his overall coaching. Um, I still think I wonder how much him calling defense affects his coaching because he's got so much focus on that. But I think that's not going to change. So I think his
So
time management was a lot better, and I think Levy on offense was way better about not going fast all the time. I thought it was better for time of possession. I thought Levy himself was, to me, probably 5-7 times better than last year. I thought he had a lot better year this year calling plays. Thought he had a great year, and obviously that catapulted him to another head coaching position for him. So kudos to him, and move on from that. But
You know,
final question here. Final
Oh.
question for everyone. OU is 10-2 right now, and next year at this moment, everyone on here would take 10-2 in a heartbeat. I don't care who the loss is.
absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so my question is this: 10-2, you have a bowl game coming up. Don't know where that's going to be yet, but you're 10-2. What needs to happen for OU to be sitting at 10-2 next year at this time?
Well, top 20 defense and the top 10 offense. I think that's
Right, but
That's
what
a-
needs to happen for that to happen, Jackson?
well, Jackson Arnold, I think, needs to play like Jackson Arnold has the potential to show why he has a chance to be a future Heisman, has a chance to have a statue out here in Norman in these next few years. And defensively, right, I think the defensive line needs to take another step. And I think that they need Stutzman and Billy Bowman both to come back as well.
yeah, I would love to get Billy Bowman and Stutzman back. We'll see. I think Stutzman, I'm leaning to him coming back. I'm not sure on Bowman, but I think defensively they made steps. Let's be honest. First half of the year they looked really good. I think we can all admit that. Even against Texas, they were physical. But to me, the defensive lines, like Jackson said, you're in the SEC now. It's big boy football, and
Right.
you need a pass rush. And listen, I know teams put extra blockers. You got to be able to beat your man one-on-one. If you rush four, and they don't have an extra blocker, they have 5 guys. There's somebody that's in one-on-one. They got to win those battles going to the SEC. You got to win one-on-one battles on the front. Period.
Yeah, I think biggest thing you have to do to be able to go 10-2 next year in the SEC is offense and defense complement each other. We didn't see that much. It would be a game where the offense is firing on all cylinders, defense is struggling, or the defense is firing on all cylinders, the offense is struggling at times. It's just we saw the defense force the turnovers that OU needed on the offensive side of the ball to get the ball back into their hands, and they're not able to put points up on the board. You can't do that in the SEC. If you're forcing turnovers, you have to go put points on the board. You cannot force a turnover and just turn it over on downs. After 3 plays, you're punting it away. That's how it was for a good chunk of the season. The last few games that kind of got turned around, BYU especially, there was 3 turnovers, 3 touchdowns scored off of those turnovers. So you got to figure out ways to make that happen. And one of those is, like you guys said, defensive line. They got to play a lot better. They got to get sacks. They have to get that pressure consistently. They have to win. I mean, you guys were watching the BYU game yesterday. They're sacking Alan Bowman with rushing 3 against 5. They're getting a sack. That did not happen when OU played Oklahoma State. You can't do that to win games. So whatever changes have to be made, they have to be solved this offseason.
Hey, last thing I'll say is go look at the top 5 right now and look at a lot of the teams. Okay, Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, those teams don't throw for 400 yards a game. Well, how do they win? They win with defense and timely play calling and scoring. They're not out there just running air raid offense winning. It's you're going to the SEC. It's a different ball game over there. You're not going to be able to just. You got to have a better defense. The defense still has to improve for them to get to where they want to be.
In my opinion, what needs to happen for OU to be sitting at 10-2? I'll give 2 words: physicality, and you guys all mentioned defense. I'm talking about physicality up front on the offensive line as well. It got better. It got a lot better, and it needs to continue going that trend. You got to be more physical. I think Jackson Arnold at quarterback position makes you more physical automatically because he's a physical guy. And the other thing is, I'm going to talk to what Hunter just said about BYU getting pressure. Physicality and loyalty. The loyalty needs to stop. We need to play. OU needs to play the best guys regardless of who they are, what class they are as far as senior, freshman, because that's what's got to happen. Whoever's going to give you the best chance to win. I think sometimes the loyalty was just a bit much in some cases, even going back to maybe the Gavin Freeman thing. So I would say physicality and loyalty. And I want you guys as viewers to answer those three things. What grade would you give the Sooners? Is it an A- like Jackson, or maybe a C-, or maybe it's something in between? Who's your MVP on this team this year, offensive and defensive MVP? And last, what needs to happen for OU to be 10-2 next year on November 26th? So appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel. Till next time, Boomer.